And what it amounts to, and what the president campaigned on, and what his party is now pushing for, and they're pushing to pass this before Memorial Day in the House, is a bill that would essentially put extraordinary fees on utility companies as a means of discouraging the use of fossil fuels, most notably coal, to create electricity. Now, I'm greatly simplifying because A, I'm not an expert, and B, in the interest of time. What the companies then do is they cap their use, or they will buy credits to trade out for where they're over their cap. You follow? So, bottom line is the federal government is assuming in the president's budget over $500 billion in revenues. I think in the next first year that it's in effect. Now, the president told, I think it was the San Francisco Chronicle, we quoted in the speech, when he was campaigning last year, he spoke very candidly. The president's a candid man. He said that he knew that it would increase the cost on utility companies, but he was confident they would simply pass that along to utility ratepayers. He said this on the record with the San Francisco newspaper. And that was a very candid comment. It was also very true. According to MIT, if the cap and trade bill were passed into law, the average American household would see their utility rates go up $3,128 per year. But let me say, that's deceptive. For Hoosiers, it'll most certainly be more than that. Because in Indiana, we are go visit the Ohio River Valley. Okay? We are very heavily dependent in the Midwest on coal-burning power plants. Much less so than they are in California, much less so than they are in the Northeast or in the Pacific Northwest. All right? And so the truth is, that $3,128 per household is an average, based on what the government's going to be taking out of the economy, based on the number of American households. That's not how it'll work. Heritage Foundation in Washington, D.C. just produced a study in which they listed the congressional districts by most affected by the cap and trade to the least affected. And the first few pages were all Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Kentucky. And the last few pages of the list were California, Massachusetts. My message, and Bill, we'll post this on our website, mikepence.house.gov, the official website. I'm happy to make a copy of my remarks available to you. They may be in the paper tomorrow. But what I was going to call on my colleagues in both parties to do was, on this one, we need to lock arms, and we need to defend the economic interests of Hoosier families and small businesses and family farmers and manufacturers, and do everything in our power to defeat cap and trade. Now, I will tell you that I think less sulfur dioxide in the air is a good thing. I support the Clean Air Act. I think that we can achieve a reduction in the emission of so-called greenhouse particulates. But I think we can achieve that by creating laws that give incentives to new technologies for these companies. Give them new technologies, new filtering systems, as opposed to a gigantic new regulatory scheme that sits on top of the utility companies and they pass the cost of that directly along to you, the consumer. So it's a humongous issue, which it's not like there's been a shortage of those so far this year. But it represents a massive tax increase on every American household, every renter, every small business, every family farm. And Hoosiers deserve to know that we take, if we don't take the first hit, we come pretty darn close to being the most impacted state in the union, and I wanted my colleagues in the legislature to know that. And fortunately, they're going to at least receive a printed copy of my remarks.